This is Tech Talk with De Novo. Virtual events that unlock the potential of legal case management software to save you time, reduce costs, and enhance your practice's overall performance. Let's make your life easier.
For this webinar brought to you by De Novo and Hey Legal. So the title today is From Manual to Modern, the 1 hour tech tune-up for property, family and private client law firms. We'll just do some quick introductions. So thanks first of all very much to De Novo for asking me to join today. I'm sure Stephen Hill, who is Managing Director of De Novo and Accredited Legal Technologist, is well known to many of you. So good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Morning, Ali. I'm well, thank you. Looking forward to having a chat this morning.
Good stuff. And for myself, for those who don't know me, so my name is Ali Thompson. So I'm now non-practicing solicitor. I say that I have escaped. I'm a former high street law firm partner. So I have been in the trenches trying to implement tech in the environments I'm sure many of you are in. I'm now Senior Tutor of Legal Innovation and Technology the diploma course at Glasgow University, and I'm creator and host of the Law Society Legal Technology Certification course and the Legal Tech Conference. So that's my background, and today we're going to try to guide you through the past, the present and the future of legal technology. So obviously setting a high bar here for 1 hour. We have much to cover. Stephen is going to assist me here by sharing his screen. And I've got some very basic Web 1 type slides to show to you, created by my own fair hand, so fairly simplistic, but hopefully they will do the trick. And it will show us what we are running through today. So Tech Talk live webinar, Stephen, just that one, that's the one. Perfect, thank you. So from manual to modern, if you just click up onto present, Stephen, I think that'll take us into that. We're able to then, there we go, full screen. So brilliant. So that's the title. Moving on to the next screen, this will give us an outline of the format that we have. So part one, we're going to look at the NV now. So just a little look back to the past and where we are currently. And the purpose of that is to give us context to show how things have changed over principally the last 30 years or so, and to make us probably grasp the opportunities that are open to us now in a totally unprecedented way. Part 2 and part 3 are over to Stephen. So part 2, what you can implement right now. So we're going to look at tools that you can use, software that you probably already have, that you're able to implement probably in more practical ways than you perhaps do currently, and he's going to show you best practice, which is absolutely brilliant. Part 3, a glimpse into an AI-powered future. So we're at a different stage of legal tech development and technology development generally, and we're going to look as to how that might change the way that you interact with data, client matters, how you will do your work basically going forward. And we definitely want to leave time for Q&A and to outline some resources for you going forward. One thing I would say is that we are very keen for this not to be just us broadcasting to you, but to have you involved. So we'd be delighted if you put any questions into the chat. Please put them in at any point whatsoever. We'll try to incorporate them, but we will certainly have time at the end to run through all of these. Okay, so moving to the next slide, please, Stephen. I often start with this quote because I think it basically emboldens people a little bit. So Stephen Gould, law firm consultant, very successful entrepreneurial lawyer, wrote a lot in the journal. I saw this quote of his: "The law is a tough, relentless profession in which sustained excellence is the minimum standard. It makes great mental, physical and emotional demands." And I agree with that 100%. It is tough. And I think the role of being a lawyer needs to seize every opportunity that there is to get assistance. And that can be from great colleagues and peers and the overall profession, but it also lies in technology. If there is an opportunity to make your very challenging work life easier, then it would be wise, I would say, to grasp it. So that's the reason for including that. Next slide, please, Stephen. This coming up is a quote. So I run the Legal Technology Certification course, as I say. We are due to start next month. If anyone wants to join us, I'll give you more information about that later. But every time I write out and ask those who've signed up about what it is that they're trying to achieve, why have they signed up for the course, what challenges are they facing, and how can we address them in the course content. And one of the responses from the very first running of the course resonated with me, and it's this one here. So it's from a practitioner who is still practicing. He's in his early 70s, and I've described him as a very brave and forward-thinking practitioner. But in 1980-81, while a very junior partner, I organised purchase of an Olivetti accounts computer and a Philips word processor with a printer. It cost £15,000, and at the same time I bought a brand new Mercedes 200 for £7,250. So what's my point here? Well, my point is that we've never had a greater opportunity to use technology compared to early pioneers. The change in his practice that was made by incurring this cost was probably pretty minimal, but you could see there was a desire to make change and use tech. And now, if you compare, if you're watching this on a smartphone, or you've got access to my Copilot, whatever, any for £20 a month or whatever it is, the processing power, the opportunities, the functionality that is there is beyond comprehension from what was faced by a practitioner in 1980 and 81. And the hope is that that kind of emboldens you into thinking, well, this person did so much at that point. Look at the chances I've got here. Why don't I take them? And that's what we're going to try and look at today. Okay, so let's look at some context just to give us a handle on what's going on and how it will impact on your work. So moving to the next slide. As we all know, practice of law in Scotland has a very long heritage. For most of that time, you could argue that very little changed if we're going to look at a conveyancing process. I could be very wrong. I am certainly no conveyancer, but the process of buying a property maybe 100 years ago and possibly 30 years ago didn't change very much. The way that it was done very possibly didn't change, and please correct me if I'm wrong. But over the last 30 years, we've started to see some real key drivers of change, and we sometimes tend to overestimate how technology will impact on things. There's a lot of hype, and we perhaps dismiss things when they don't immediately change everything. Then over time, gradually and incrementally, they do start to take hold. So at very, very high level here, what's changed things in that last 30 years? Well, the internet. So the way that we communicate and share information as lawyers has been transformed by that. Richard Susskind, who many of you will know, legal technologist, Scottish legal technologist, in the mid-1990s, when he wrote about email becoming the default mode of communication for lawyers in Scotland. He was challenged by the Law Society of England and Wales for basically bringing the profession into disrepute. They really didn't want to think that email would be the way that we would do things, and look at how that has played out. So that's impacted on how we share information, no longer relying upon snail mail and all of that type of stuff. And it's also changed our clients. So people have got much more information available to them. Their expectations have changed, and what they want from lawyers has changed. The next big change is obviously the cloud coming in, and I'm putting that roughly around 2010. This is a game changer, really. So if you think back to having software on your machine, people had to come round, someone in your firm had to come round and load that software up onto your machine. And this was a massive pain. It was expensive, it was time consuming, and it could be risky if it didn't work. You had to uninstall it. It was a total nightmare. And firms tended to stick with old systems, but the cloud changed all of that. You could essentially log into all sorts of different type of software cheaply, easily, with no disruption. And this really sped up changes in the legal world. And then the pandemic. So if we focus on conveyancing, you will know the profound impact that was felt there in the property markets when essentially it ground to a halt during the pandemic, because there weren't systems in place to deal with situations where people couldn't go into offices to sign things and other associated difficulties. There was no emergency plan that ever envisaged that this might have happened. And that was a great accelerator to change. So we, for example, are on a Teams call. It is, I think, this morning. Yes, it is. And this type of functionality, Teams and Zoom and video conferencing, was available before the pandemic. We did, in fact, run the university tech course on Zoom in advance of the pandemic. But people didn't really use it. They never really interrogated its business use. And I've heard people dismiss it, saying that nobody would do anything of real consequence using video conferencing. You went to see your lawyer. And look at how we've now all embraced that. And you may have seen the criminal appeal courts going live streaming as of tomorrow. quarter session live streaming, all of that stuff. So the pandemic forced changes, and it forced it into the conveyancing market as well. So moving to the next slide, please, Stephen. So just for that quick look back about conveyancing, we have got early days. We are going to do some live polling in a second. If anyone's still using these micro tapes, please tell us if that is the case. Put it into the chat. They are still certainly about. I know that's the case, but if we think pre-email, so before 1990s, all paper, so snail mail, faxes, filing cabinets, super slow communication, all of that. Clerical accuracy was key. And then we get into the email era, mid-90s to early 2010. So email does speed things up. Documents, although are still often printed. Online services start to pop up, land registration, and we start to see some new issues arising around security and version control, but still lots of paper involved. And then we come to the cloud digital era, and this is where it obviously gets much more exciting. So cloud platforms for case management, client portals, e-signatures, online ID checks, digital land registry, automation, all starting to become much more prevalent in the norm. So we are in the transition over a 30-year period to moving from an analog world, a paper world, into a much more seamless digital conveyancing type of environment. And now we're at the stage of the AI era. If we move to the next slide, Stephen, we'll see Richard Susskind here talking about saying that AI, that we're all talking about generative AI, that AI has now arrived and everything. But in his new book, which I would recommend, published this year, he's saying, look, there's already systems that we can't even begin to contemplate and understand. And I appreciate entirely, and it's the case for everyone, that all of this can be utterly bamboozling and possibly demoralising. And we're not looking to do that, but we're looking to get a handle on it. And we're going to show you tools that you can use today. So just moving to the next slide, Stephen. What we do have to accept is that the pace of change has never been this fast, but it will never be this slow again. So we're seeing rollouts, if anyone can remember, Windows 95 moving to Windows 98. Actually, very little changed in those platforms during that 3-year period. And I would reckon that you're seeing the same types of changes or far greater changes daily, if not weekly, with platforms. It really has simply exploded. Moving to the next slide, Stephen, thanks. What we have now is the worst AI we'll ever see in our lives. So it is improving. It's very easy as lawyers to maybe try something the first time, not get a very good response out of it and say it doesn't really work or it's not relevant to my world. But that may be because of the way we've actually tried to use it. But also, if it has been poor in its output, the reality is it's getting better, and that really is on a daily basis. So let's quickly move to some live polling just to get a handle on where we are. Then we'll start to hear from Stephen. So you'll see a code here. So if you take your laptop, phone, whatever, go to menti.com and it will prompt you to add in the code. So 568505558. And the reason we do this is that you're just not simply hearing me droning on, but we're actually getting some feedback from you. So if you go to there, you'll start to see these questions pop up, and you can tell us what ways that you feel you are working. So you work in the old way? Do you think you're working in a very modern way? Or are you somewhere in between? There we go. Always delighted to see the first response come in, because it means that people can actually do this. So how do we feel? Are we feeling good about this? Are we feeling, right, I'm not sure that we've really got a handle on this? Because this is going to inform what Stephen shows you, what we put into the tech checklist that we send out to you later as well. And I'm pleased to see now that we seem to have no one coming in the old way. So that is good to see. We'll let this run just for a bit longer, just to get people onboarded, just so that we get as many, because we have 59 people on the call, 15 responses thus far. So if we can get a few more, that'd be really good. But strong bias towards maybe being in the middle. So some old ways still going on, no doubt about that. I did, when I was doing some research, see reference to the DX, and that took me back, I have to say. It's been a long while since I've heard reference to that. So the DX, and I was trying to find an image of a fax machine, but I failed in relation to, well, I could have got one, but it didn't look really very much like that. But I wonder if they're still kicking about. Okay, so good. So we're somewhere in between, largely, and many are working in a modern way, and that's great to hear as well. Okay, so moving to the next slide, please, Stephen. Think you use technology well, or are you behind the curve? What's your gut feeling about this? What's the chat that happens at the partners meetings? We need to get better at this, or I think we're not too sure about how we're doing. I think other people are using it better. This is good. So good confidence about using tech. That's excellent. Somebody's given us a thumbs up. That's good as well. Using tech well. So that's really, really good. And that shows progressive forward thinking that we're looking here to say, right, what can we do next? What's the next frontier around AI? Okay, that's good stuff.
I think as well, going back to the question before that as well, it's quite interesting that people, they know they're not using all of the technology that's available to them, but what they're using well. I think that's probably the overall arching answer to this, and that's probably where we see most firms that we work with as well. They're in that space where they've got something, they're using bits of it, they're using bits of it well, but they could use more of it. So I think the answers we're getting so far are kind of what I would expect, which is good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. We can certainly look at how they can use it more in the next section as well, Steve. So that's really good, because I do think we do default to sometimes getting a way to use something, just use it that way all the time and don't explore. So what legal tech topics would you like to know more about? So let's make sure we're covering all the right stuff. So is it automation? What is it? What would you like to hear more about? Maybe, again, always waiting for my first answer to make sure the person can actually provide responses, but maybe I'm hoping that's working, and maybe it's just our format is currently fine. Oh, there we go. Automation, right? Perfect. It is working. That's good. So automation. Any other takers around this? So automation of tasks, good. Oh, automation of deeds. Let's look at a big automatic telephone reception. Oh, good. How to improve efficiency. Brilliant. These are really good. AI for calls. AML integration. That's great. Connectivity. Automation of diary. Right. Good stuff. Good stuff. This is all excellent. Okay. We'll move on quickly then, because I've obviously got. I don't want to take up too much time talking about this past stuff, but this is really helpful for what lies ahead in the hour. Yes, this is one that always interests me. So yes, no, or don't know. So hopefully just some quick answers. Do you have a policy on AI use? Always find this interesting and often quite worrying. But we'll cover that in due course. Okay. I do lots of these talks for the Law Society and with I do trainee CPD and stuff like that, and these numbers are not in any way surprising. So, okay, that's great information to know. So thank you for that. Next one, Stephen, please. All right, there we go. We've reached the end of the presentation. So brilliant. So thank you for that. So that gives us great insight. So I'll look at the past, I'll look at where we are, and understanding we've got unprecedented opportunities. We've got existing software that we can use in a very, probably more productive way. Stephen's going to show us that. Then we're going to have a glimpse towards the future, say, how does this all again get reimagined around AI? So think of the timeframes, think of the difference between the 1990s and where we are now, 30-year period. Pace of change has never been faster. So what's this going to be like in 5 years' time? It's going to in 2 years' time. We principally really don't know. But Stephen is now going to show you something of the present. Then we'll look towards the future. So over to you, Stephen. Thanks.
Okay. Just get things ready. Let me just close this down. Is that all visible yet?
All visible, yep.
Nice one. Yeah, so essentially, a lot of the focus I'm going to go through here is related to caseload, case management, and accounts system. I'm going to real high level here. So again, I'll leave you get any comments on anything that you're looking at or anything you're unclear of, and the same with the guys in the chat. Just get involved and ask any questions. I'll cover over some of the high level tasks and automation that we've been building in, and then we can go through some of that as well in terms of what else is interesting. So a lot of this is focused on matter related information. So one of the things that came up on there was around the AML Risk Centre that we have. So I'll start with that. It's a kind of hot topic, something that we have worked hard on to get the different bits and pieces in place. So digital KYC onboarding, the ability to complete risk assessment from within a matter, stuff that's really interesting and stuff that we can really use. And then we'll look at some other bits and pieces. I'll try and cover a broad range of work types throughout this as well. So we'll look at, obviously, risk assessment is quite big on the conveyancing space. We'll look a little bit into private client as well, and just kind of show you tools around that which we think are useful. And again, I'll not rush this. I'll just kind of leisurely take us through that process and see how we get with that. So within the AML Risk Centre, we've got probably 4 key features in caseload now. So AML, that's your money laundering ID status. So you can see this one is satisfied. I'll show you how we got to that position. We've got the risk assessment, so that's your digital risk assessment. We've got AML certification, where we're capturing additional information, and we can also do conflict searches as well. So as you're creating the client and matter, you can do a conflict search, or once you've created it, you can do a conflict search as well. So there's that ability to not fall foul of any of the rules that are in play, and that gives you that opportunity to do that in the risk centre. And that'll evolve and expand as things change. We try and be dynamic with the software. We try and keep up with the pace of change. So if fundamental questions change on the risk assessment, then we can look to implement those. If other things crop up for the certification purposes, then of course we'll continue to add that as well. So on the AML for this particular client, you see I've moved into the client record. So we've now got 2 integrations for automation. So we have the Amicus automation for AML ID, which we'll have a wee look at, and we have the Verify 365 option as well, which is through Property Searches Scotland. So we've been building additional integrations to make it as easy as possible. So I'm in this client record. I'll show you the Amicus one just now. You would check the client's details, create the client. That'll go ahead and create the client for you, and it'll ask you, do you want to then send the request? So you can go onto the Amicus website, select the various options that you want to carry out. So what documents are we asking for, what ID we need, and what bank information do we require? So all of that different types of questions. What we've just launched recently is the ability to select that from a template. So if you click on template and you've already got an Amicus workflow in play, then you can select that Amicus workflow here and not have to go to the website, and then you can just carry on. So we've taken that already automated step and enhanced that further with the additional ability to have pre-populated templates in place. So if this is a residential sale ID check, I know on my Amicus workflow that I've already got the different boxes ticked for that residential ID check. I'll OK that. It'll ask me to want to assign that to somebody. So assigning that to somebody within my team then means when that person completes that check, that person will get an email notification to say Albert Albright in this instance has completed his check. So I'll assign that to Craig. OK that, and that request has been completed. So in the case where there's multiple clients, you would go to the people record on there. If you had single, this one is a single client, but you would simply select the client, perform the check, select the request from the template of options and submit, and then go to person to perform check, template, and submit. So making that as simple and straightforward as possible to perform those checks. The Verify 365 one's very similar in that you select the Perform Verify checks, select which checks you want to complete. So I'll just do an address check. You can do ID, bank statement, source of funds. So this is you getting a similar experience to Amicus, but on this screen here. You okay that, okay, ask if you want to proceed, and then it'll go and send those checks as well off to Verify 365, which is on our test system. So some things don't get results back depending on how they're changing the software. But both of those allow you to onboard a client. So create that client and associated matter in caseload. You've onboarded the client and you're immediately having that opportunity to do the ID straight away. So it just makes it so simple to do that. And that's why we've built those integrations inside caseload so that you're not having to log into a website. You can still log into a website and approve and review the Amicus one, and that will send the data straight back to this client record. And you immediately update the ID satisfied, so you can see in there, once that client completes that request, maybe maximize that a bit there, but once that client's completed that request, anything they send back is stored back to the record for you to view once you've approved and reviewed that. So gives you that full functionality of the onboarding process and gives you that ID back straight away. So if I just leave the client record for a second, what you probably want to do after that is maybe your ID in terms of business. So what we've got in here is these automated milestones. So these milestones are specific to work types. A lot of firms are embracing those just because it gives them the ability to have tasks that can be completed literally at the click of a button. So in clicking the button for the ID and the TOB, for this one here, it's going to prepare a smart event. So that maybe create a terms of business, send that off. It's this instance here, it's giving me the TOB screen, the risk assessment screen to complete. So I will simply complete that risk assessment, answering the questions around the client risk, the transaction risk, and then doing my risk assessment from here. So Graham's done one initially here is a high risk and it needs to be authorised. You can then obviously do your interim and your final risk assessment there as well. Anything that's high risk, that flags an alert notification to the MLRO. So in this case, the MLRO is Callum, and Callum's assessed that risk and said, yeah, that's good to proceed. And what then happens in practical terms from that is when you complete the risk assessment, it creates an audit trail PDF of the initial, interim and final risk if you do them separately, which we would hope you do. So you do the initial first, interim at some point through the middle of the transaction, maybe conclusion of missives or whatever the point in time you decide to do interim, and then final just right before settlement, just doing that final check, is there any issues? What happens in caseload is you get an audit trail of the answers provided. So all of the answers provided on the client risk and the transaction risk are saved off to a PDF. So you've got that full audit trail for the initial, and final. Then from the risk assessment perspective, the MLRO's got the notification to say it's high, and then once they've approved it, the fee earner then gets an email back saying that's now been approved, you can proceed with the transaction. Some firms have embraced, and you can see that's just ticked that milestone there as well. Some firms have asked us as well, so can we lock things down? We don't want matters progressing if no risk assessment's been done, and we have implemented those features as well. So on some matters that are recently opened, that have the big red risk assessment part against it, we can say, right, let's make a call on this and say, from the new button, you can't do anything financial if you've not done an initial risk assessment. So on the new button, we have ability to have time recording, we have requisition slip automation for creating requests to cash room, you have the ability to create fees and cash statements as well. We can basically block those tasks from being completed if no initial risk assessment's been done. And again, it just forces a little bit of compliance as well, helpful for the MLRO, so they're not having lots of matters progressing without risk assessment being done. So it just gives them that opportunity to have that done as well. And just to touch on the certification, that's just an additional step, and It's mainly conveyancing related. You can see the types of data that we're looking to store in there. This just helps with that annual return. We've had firms that have that sometimes this stuff can take days because you're being asked about a transaction. You're being asked in February this year about a transaction that happened in January 2024 or February 2024, which is a full 12 months ago. So the brain's not engaged with that and trying to remember what actually happened with that transaction. So what we built in there was the ability to say, right, this is a private individual and it's a sale. And you can actually capture information about the property type. Is it commercial or private? Are they buying it to invest an investment property? Are they actually going to live in the property? And then what's the property value? Getting happy with the numbers there. So is it a cash purchase? How much did they physically cash pay? So again, just that ability to have more information stored against each individual matter, which then takes that 2-3 day task into hopefully under 1 to 2 hours task. And if you're capturing that information at the appropriate time, so you can save all that off inside the risk assessment as well. And then just for these milestones, what you can see in there is you can see progress being made. So we've even had some firms that don't, with conveyancing transactions, things cannot always go in a linear format. We've looked at some workflow automation, we've looked at milestone automation. Some things that stuff just happens at different random times, and it's hard to say, right, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this, because that's just life. That's just the way transactions progress. Some could happen in 2 weeks, some could happen in 2 months, obviously much longer. You guys know more than me. So what we've done is build. I'm trying to get my train of thought. Where was I going with that? So on the milestones, you can have those formatted. But what we found as well is some firms just wanted milestones for the post-settlement process. So they'll settle the case, we'll have to acknowledge keepers received, we'll have to do ROS, we'll have to do LBTT. Those have very strict timeframes in them. So we've actually built processes for some firms that just have the settlement part of it that is milestone related, and then you can report on that and see any anomalies in that as well. So you can see what matters have I settled last week, what have I done. You can see the milestones that have been ticked and what's been actioned as well. So there's lots of different parts of the process that can be automated. And I suppose what we do with caseload is give you that opportunity to have as many different processes automated as possible with the smart milestones. On the smart events menu, you can have lots of different options as well. So some examples in there might be a document approval system where you've created a document and it needs approved. So you need to do an approval request. That would just automate that process, especially if there's stuff happening across different people within the department as well. So we deal with some really small firms and just really big firms, and different ones have different processes of how will gets approved or how trust deed gets approved. So we've built in automated approval processes. You can have emails just to select as well. So really simple email options in there. So just selecting that will just build an email template. So you could just have those templates of options just sitting there to be sent. That one's really simple. It's just pulling in some information there, and you would just send that email. So you've got the ability to have those on the smart events menu as well for the automation of tasks. So that can be going to a website, that can be creating a document, sending an email, creating a planned event. So we like to have planned events in there. You can see we've got 9 on this matter here. So that's tasks that have yet to be completed on the matter. So even just building up that flow of things that need to be done. Those can then be automated planned events as well. So that one there for the ID and TB, which we've done as a smart milestone. If it was there as a planned event, I can right click and change the status and run the smart event, and it will then create tasks for me. So I can then create a task off the back of that. This is an event task that I can add attachments to, I can add emails to. So within the events, there's lots of different functionality you can add to that. So this one, you can see it's a multitask option in there. it's doing different things for me. It's creating an email, it's creating a task, it's there's another email for me with different options in there as well. And then my risk assessment. Maybe a few associated with that in testing. I'll just close them down. But as you can see, there is a lot of different automation and options that can be associated. This one's just doing all sorts for me without me actually doing anything. But you can see the powerful process behind that. Like any one task can have multiple things happen off the back of it. I think the context of this one's been used quite a bit for testing purposes. That one's going to do a signable for me as well. So even accidentally here, I'm creating automated tasks that I didn't know I was going to create as well. So that could be a package of documents that you then send off for e-signature. So what that's basically done there, it's created this offer letter. It's created this terms of business. And basically the client's going to sign that terms of business here. So that signature tag that's in there, and they're going to complete some other bits and pieces of information. So what we do with those tasks is have the ability to create different options in there as well off the back of the automation. So what that signable one does, just as it just does something else here, what the signable one does is it gives you that ability to send those documents off for e-sign. And when the client signs that document off for an e-sign, I think that's it finished now. When it sends it off for e-sign, as soon as the client completes that document, that immediately saves back to the matter as well. So we've got integrations for e-signature, for signable and DocuSign, and just having those, being able to create those documents from the matter, send them off. As soon as that's completed, they're immediately on the file. Sometimes they're on the file before you actually get the email to say the client's completed it. It's really that quick. So you've got that option as well. And this one here was just a wee quote that was being created from the system as well. So conscious obviously of the time, but in terms of risk assessment, smart events and automation, you can see there's some really good options in there as well. Going to touch on the ROS integration. So with the ROS integration, you can see what I've done here. It's so simple to use, and it's really quick at returning the information. And the reason this will lead me on to an AI related point as well. So I'm going to use one integration from part 2 to take me into part 3. So if you bear with me, we'll just do that just now. So with ROS, too many zeros. With ROS, we do have some template ones that are available to use. So you pop in the title number, and that will create the request. So with the title request, you'll get the title summary. So I just look at the title summary here. That'll just populate the title summary for me. I'm going to copy that because I'm going to use that in a wee second. You get the title data as well. So all of the data around the title, copy that as well. You can create a slip request for that. So it can be with or without the VAT, but you can create a slip request for that as well, which will put that on for cashing purposes as well. And then you can get the title document. So that's that saved back to the client record, and you can get the title plan as well. And you can see that's now on the client record. So with a title number and the inbuilt integration with ROS, you can really quickly get what you need from all of that. So the data, the title, and the plan. And then obviously do what you do with those once you've got them. But the process for getting them is really slick and really automated as well. We do have one for deeds as well, which we've just been working on. So on the deed, you've got your different types. These are basically submissions you can make to ROS around the deeds. So for a discharge of standard security, you can add applicants to that and put the information around the applicants. For the disposition, if you've got applicants and grantors, you can add. You can import applicants if it's the applicant of the matter, and that populate their details, as you can see. And then the final one is standard security, where you can submit grantors and you can select from the list of creditors in there as well. And once you've done that and populated your information, it would have the ID mortgage numbers that you've added from the title. You'll then be able to submit the deed off there as well. So there's quite a bit on the ROS integration, but the title one's really simple, really easy to use, and lots of firms are already benefiting just from getting the title information back from there. So I'm going to come out of this and I'm going to go to our recently launched AI legal assistant. So we'll have a wee look at this for 5 or so minutes. Just I'll go through the basics of it in terms of what it is and what it does. So the AI legal assistant in Caseload, powered by LawY, gives you the ability to ask legal research questions and get really good answers in that. So that could be really simple, but asking a legal question, but it could also be something like summarizing the data of a title. So this is one here I'd done earlier on, but I'm just going to ask it a new one based on the one that we've just done there. So just going to attach that. So what I've done is just pasted that ROS data that we had from the title deed that we just got fresh, we hadn't seen before, brand new title, new information, don't know what's on it. I've copied that information and have asked for a title summary. These title summaries are long, could be very long, could be very complex, might not make really much sense. You need to extract all the information, can be multiple burdens on there as well. So I'm hoping this AI legal assistant will give me a better summary of the title that we've just copied in than what is there in that block of text. So it'll do that and it'll generate a response. So let's see what we get back from here. I'll just maximize this just so we can have a play around. So we've got the property description. We've got the rights on there. Any common services, exclusive services, any way leave rights, and a summary. So what do you think, Ali? Do you think that's a decent summary?
Absolutely. Now there's a question come in. Stephen, thanks for I liked the way you took us from stage 2 into stage 3 and showing LawY there and carrying over the data. There's 2 questions in the chat. I'm going to say Ronald. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but anyway. So yeah, first of all, on a more practical level, are you integrated to DM Hall? And secondly, rules for confidentiality. So some obviously need to think around AI tools, putting data into them. When is it safe and secure to do so? If it's client confidential matters.
Yeah, no, that's really good questions. We are in discussions with DM Hall at the moment, so it's reasonably early discussions. So I'm not going to say it's something that we're going to get probably within months, but it's something that that's on our roadmap of providers to integrate with. We've had dialogue for several months, and our technologies are in discussions. Our development departments are in discussions to get something that we can work with in terms of the API. So yes, it's on the roadmap, but it's not something that's immediately available as it stands. And we get asked the second question a lot. So the data that's within LawY, it's not open to the public, so it's not public information. Now, I think you need to be careful with the information you're putting in, regardless, just because you just don't know where the data is. But this is protected and it's in a protected environment. What I will say is, if you go to Ask AI on that, so if say I've taken that, I mean, that property information is in the public register, so it's anyone can access that data essentially anyway. But if you've then, what you can do as a follow-up with that is send it to your client. So you say, can you email or can you prepare an email with that summary to Mr. John, whatever the name needs to be. You can put an email address in. So you can put the information in. I would avoid doing it as much as possible. So basically that will just provide that as a summary, which you can then copy and paste and use wherever you need to. But what you'll see in the generated response in that, so before we close down this interactive AI session, what I would do if I had generated that and used that in a letter with maybe other details, that could be an address or something like that, if you actually used it to do that, what I would then do is ask AI to remove personal information. So the Ask AI function really lets you make it shorter, remove PI, improve the writing, fix spelling and grammar, translate into other languages as well, which you'll get there. So I would say you would ask it to remove personal information so that none of that personal information goes on there.
That's great. I mean, that brings me back, Stephen, to the question about having a AI use policy in firms as well. So if you think about it, if you've got, say, 15 lawyers in a firm, everyone's making their own judgment. In the absence of a policy, everyone's making their own judgment around what tools to possibly use or information to put in. And, that can be an issue. And secondly, as we're seeing AI capabilities being baked in more and more and more into different platforms they're using all the time. So, easy ones to reference are Microsoft or something like that, but there's AI capabilities in there. It's really important to understand when the information you are inputting, where is it going? Is it safe? What is the correct protocol there? And a policy really helps that. So that's something I think everyone can maybe have a think about post this.
I think there's really simple AI out there as well, isn't there? There's really simple AI that when you're typing an email now, you'll be auto-suggested what to say next in Outlook and things like that. So the AI technologies are just happening, but I think lawyers are right to be wary. I mean, there'll be firms out there that don't have a policy that they'll maybe have lawyers in there that are, I'd say the more junior lawyers are used to this level of technology. They've used it throughout the university courses. They've used it in their early practice. So that's their area of go-to. So unless you've actually said, this is our policy, this is where you can use AI and not, they're Googling things anyway. So in Google now, you'll get the AI overview and they'll get a summary of the question they've asked. So you're almost, I think the tone of questions when they're asking Google or ChatGPT or essentially LawY, you're asking it as if you would be asking a person to check something. Like the questions changed. It's not just what is the law around this. It's in the context of me being a personal injury lawyer. How would I defend the claim, etc. And that's the next question as well. So I think the language that we use in these tools is very important as well, because the answers provided are much better. That's the only word that came to mind. They're much more intuitive. The answers you get, the question you ask, the more specific you are with the question, the better the output you're going to get, the better answer you're going to get provided with these tools. But I think you're completely right. There needs to be policies in place that say, right, this is what you're allowed to use versus not allowed to use, and that doesn't have to be overly complex. But I think every firm needs to consider that and have that as a policy.
Yeah, thanks. I've just put a link into the chat from, it's just a BBC news article, but it's about Hill Dickinson. Some of you may have heard that name of that law firm because they now it's the Hill Dickinson Stadium for Everton Football Club, which does continue to amaze me that a law firm can sponsor a Premiership stadium. But then that's an aside. But that's an interesting article. It's actually this was reported in a negative way, that they restricted staff use, and this was after the release of DeepSeek, the Chinese platform, which was considered to be even more kind of precarious than ChatGPT for data confidentiality, and the staff were using it. And the reason I post that is because it shows the power of a policy. They're able to say this is not something you can use. Staff can make an application to start to use different platforms, but when there's no policy in place whatsoever, then it kind of literally is, the Wild West. You're just getting data, and you're relying upon common sense, and common sense for different generations and different people and all of that is very different. So that's, I think, would be a key point to focus on. So brilliant, thanks for that. There's a question as well so thank you, Ronald, for those questions. Victoria, is a report able to be generated for the AML certification for multiple files and for certain time periods?
Absolutely. So if I take us back to the global AML Risk Centre, so this is basically where all the answers are being stored. So on the current certification period. So if you look at AML risk metrics for the period January to December, you can actually see the numbers around ones that have been completed versus not completed. And what we're then finding in there is, if we look at ones that have been completed this year, so not many in this demo data, you can actually then group and see how many do we have that are low, medium, high. Now there is obviously we don't do all of the questions on this window because there's a lot of questions in there. But if you were to then say, right, for the face-to-face, I'm going to group that. I'm going to see, well, we had 3 face-to-face, 3 without a status, 3 no status, no answer was given, 3 face-to-face, and then 1 not required. So you can get the answers behind that based on the risk assessment data, and then the same with the AML certification data. So all that information is reportable and stored in the risk assessment, and then you can look back at past periods as well. So I can go and see my data for 2024. So we segment that as well into different reporting periods in terms of the outlook, the output, of the different periods as well for that data.
Okay, that's brilliant, Stephen. Thanks for that. Thank you for the question, Victoria. Lane has asked, are we able to upload our own template reports and have LawY provide summaries using these?
Yeah, so if you've got anything in LawY, so what I did was in the legal assistant, which is slightly different from ChatGPT in that you can't drag and drop a document in or actually add a document. You do have to copy the data. So if you've got something in a document, if you select all and copy that, and let me just pull this one up here. So I had that data on my clipboard, so I could paste that in there. I could then get another document and paste that in there, and I could ask it, like it could be an instance where you've got 2 documents with the same information, ask it to do a comparison. Is there any anomalies between document A and document B? But you can absolutely take the data of the document and paste it in. It doesn't paste it in because it knows it came from a document. It doesn't paste it in, but it does add it as an attachment in there. And then you would add single or multiple attachments and then ask for a summary based on that. So yes, absolutely, you can take the data out of a document, copy it and paste it in as a document into LawY. I'm sure in the future they will have an option to just add an attachment in there, but that's the way to use it as it is here and now.
Okay, and you can see how powerful that ability to summarise reports and templates and stuff like that. It is, I mean, it's something I'm using every day myself, and you just can't believe how you look back at your old ways of working and say that would have taken me. I wouldn't have done it probably, whereas now we can quickly do so. And in a fixed fee environment in particular, the ability to do certain things like this so readily is brilliant. So you mentioned the future. So what is the kind of roadmap in relation to AI further rollout from de novo for existing users and new customers?
Yeah, I mean, we're always going to evolve in that. So one of the things we've got coming up, which is this being recorded? One of the
It's
things
been
we've got,
recorded, yes.
it's been recorded. One of the things we've got coming up is a Will Suite integration, which I'm really excited about for two reasons. So Will Suite is one of the, as part of our group, it's another piece of software which will be built into de novo, and it'll give you the option to from the matter create a will. So it'll be a web-based questionnaire screen. So you'll answer questions about the client, and that will generate the will with the appropriate clauses. But one of the things I got really excited about on that was its ability to scan a will. So they've got this piece of technology called Will Scan AI, and it can basically scan the will, and then have, for the executory purposes, it could create an executory, it can create suggested beneficiaries, executors, and anything around that. And then we're going to look at they're already using a technology where it can scan a bank statement, get the current balance, and add that as an asset against the executory as well. So just all of those manual processes, trying to find technology solutions for those is probably one of the things I'm most excited about over the next couple of months. And there'll be other more to follow, which I can't yet reveal, but that's one on the list anyway.
I like that, which I can't yet reveal. I like that. I like the teasing of that, but that's good. Well, I think, bringing it back to the earlier themes that we discussed, looking back to the past and the challenges of the practitioner in the early 80s to try to make some technological advance, and you look at the things that we're talking about here, if you'd been able to see them all the way back then, it would be incredible for a practitioner then to see what's available to practitioners today. I think the challenge for practitioners today is making sense of it all and having it structured and making it work together. And that's obviously something that you're looking to do. I'm doing so as well. I've put the link into the legal technology certification course. That's for any lawyer. You don't need any tech experience. And the purpose there is just to try to get people using tech, experimenting, and you're featuring in that as well, Stephen, aren't you? Showing people how to turbocharge case management. So lots going on. I'm also working with firms who are just maybe wanting to try to get, it's called 6 months to smarter working. So if you're looking to get a fast track way to get some of these policies and uses implemented in your own practice, then contact me and we can have a chat as to whether that's something we can do together. But I'm hoping today that everyone's had a glimpse of what's available currently, what's coming down the track as well. And Stephen, any comments you would like to make before we finish up and let everyone get on with their no doubt very busy days?
No, that's a great summary. And I'm just keen to chat to anyone that has seen anything today that they feel that they're not making use of. We're always encouraging that. I will encourage you to talk about anything else. Obviously, DM Hall came up with this one, but we're looking to speak with. If there's anything else that you feel would be beneficial, my developers might shoot me, but just get in touch if there's anything else that you think might be that we're missing. We're always listening. We're always looking to see where technology improvements can be made as well. So it's just like AI caseload's the worst it's ever going to be, because we're just going to get better.
Yeah. Well, I can see from the promotion of this, you can claim a free tutorial from a de novo tech expert. So anyone wants to get in touch with you directly about doing so, and we'll also be circulating a recording of this post the event, links to resources that you can take up, and that includes a tech tune-up checklist, so you're able to maybe input how you're doing things currently, and maybe seeing some changes you could make in your own practice. This really is about marginal gains. It's not a case of just flicking a switch and everything works, as we've talked about many times, Stephen. It is about doing the hard yards. AI use, because it uses natural language, does make things sometimes a bit easier to implement, and agents will no doubt help with that. But there's no other option than sometimes just engaging and saying, if we work hard at implementing tech into our practice, we will see a load of benefits from it. I said at the start about Stephen Gold, it's a tough environment to practice law, and my own particular take on it is that if you can use technology well, it's actually a well-being initiative, because people relax around good systems where everything's in control. You have to get systems out of your or data thoughts out of your head and into a system. If you're not, you don't want to be waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, I didn't send that email, or what's happening with that. A good system will take that away from you, and that's the opportunity that is out there just now. So great. So thank you very much, Stephen. We are just over the hour, and we better call it a day there. But thank you to De Novo for inviting me, and I hope everyone has enjoyed the webinar today. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.